Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we'd chat about the XM803 today, and the basic reason is I just spaded it and had a really good time in it. At 9.0 right now, it is actually a pretty good area because of the fact that 10.3 is a thing, and there's a bunch of different premiums at 10.3, so a lot of the 9.3, 9.7, 10.0 vehicles get up-tiered into that 10.3, so a lot of the time with stuff like the XM803, you're playing in that 8.3, 9.3 area, or even 9.0, 8.0 area, and they up-tiered a lot of vehicles from like 7.3, 7.7 to 8.0 recently, stuff like the good old Leopard 1, for example, and you can just annihilate them in the XM803. They don't even have a chance. The only thing they have a chance on is randomly bouncing you around, when they really shouldn't, but that is something that the XM803 has a bit of a problem with. So, what is this vehicle? Basically, it's a step between the M60 and what eventually became, of course, the Abrams. It was a set of prototypes, XM803, the MBT-70, the KPZ-70, all which were kind of a collaboration attempt between the Germans and the Americans to make a new standard of MBT. And the XM803 is the weakest out of the three of them, which is why it's the lowest BR, and the difference between it and the others is it has a weaker engine and also doesn't get a 20mm cannon for its top-mounted gun. Instead, it only has a 50 cal, which is still fine, but obviously doesn't give as much power as the 20mm, which is around. It still has the 152mm gun, it doesn't have the crazy reload of the German one, but has the same reload as the KPZ-70, which is in the American tech tree. At 9.0 as well, you have the M60A3 TTS, and also probably the best gun AA in the game, the Sergeant York, which is really fun to use. You have a bunch of vehicles with AGMs as well, the A4E Early, the FJ4B VMF232, bullpups can fly from all over the place, and then also at the same time, you have the opportunity, if you want to of course use the guided munitions of stuff like the A4s as well. So from a lineup point of view, you have a complete lineup. It's great. You have everything that you would want. Now, let's talk about the XM803 itself. It starts off very chunky, and one of the big things that you need to kind of maximize in a vehicle like this is its mobility. So mobility modifications are super useful. You have to use them to get to positions on the map, use the really good gun depression and the stabilizer of the gun on this thing to be able to kind of push forward and do well. You start off with a heat shell, which is okay, but the major issue it has is its muzzle velocity, and also a lot of vehicles around this BR are designed to stop heat. They have a lot of chemical protection, especially if you get up-tiered. So what is much better with the vehicle is to use the XM578E1, which is an APFSDS that you unlock at rank 2. So what I would say is get the improved parts modification, then work on the XM578E1, then improved FPE, then you can start working on mobility, such as the tracks, filters, transmission, engine, which, will make it feel a lot better. The muzzle velocity is nearly double on the APFSDS compared to the heat, which makes a massive difference. And then also at the same time, you have really good optics on this thing compared to the gun itself. The optics actually zoom 12 times, so it can be a little bit jarring using the heat when it has such a low muzzle velocity. But once you get the APFSDS, it ain't too bad. It's generally not too bad at all. The ammunition that this vehicle holds is actually in the back of the turret as well, 25 pieces. I was taking 15 most of the time while playing this thing, mainly because I just didn't really want to get ammo racked. I found that a lot of people would obviously shoot through the turret of the XM803. It does have a lot of random pieces of armor, but they're not very useful. Like, you have actually quite good chemical protection in the turret, but when it comes to APFSDS protection, which is a lot of the stuff you fight, you just get annihilated. So in the front you do have a fuel tank which surprisingly eats rounds, but a lot of the time if you are doing the peeking strategy, peeking up, firing and going back, you'll probably take some damage eventually, and that is a bit of an issue. You also can position the vehicle in some pretty cool ways with of course the suspension, which is really nice, so you can kind of tailor the position to the gun depression that's around. The round itself itself, though, I do have to mention, so the XM578E1, it was nerfed more recently, so it has a lot less pen than it does, and also I found against targets which do have a lot of layers of armor, when you penetrate, you don't necessarily always do a ton of damage. Instead, what happens is you will penetrate and it just won't really spoil that much, so you'll maybe destroy 1 or 2 components. So what you have to do with this round is aim for ammunition if you can, or aim for as many crew members in a straight line as you can, because just the cone of damage, even though it's a 152mm shell, because it loses so much penetration after penetrating certain areas of vehicles, it feels like it just doesn't do enough. Now, this vehicle, when you first start using it, it really is pretty rough. It's sluggish, the gun is super inaccurate, and you have heat. But once you get some of the upgrades, once you get some of the mobility ones, the tracks, the filters, transmission, engine, and once you start getting stuff like the adjustment of fire, which is super key on this vehicle, because basically it just doesn't fire straight until you get that. It is a large cannon, and it does have quite a lot of dispersion on it, especially if you're firing at longer ranges, which is generally what you're doing with this thing, because of that muzzle velocity, and also because of, you know, the areas you fight in. You obviously have a laser rangefinder, which is really nice. You have smoke grenades to reposition, and all of these general things. And once you get all of the mobility mods, it does start being able to move around at a good canter. And that feels really good on the vehicle. It feels really nice to kind of push it around. I only felt like this vehicle started kind of doing well about maybe 50 to even 70% of the way through the modifications. Once I got the engine, the filters, the good old laser rangefinder, the APFSDS, adjustment of fire, and also the tracks. But once I got to that point, I kind of felt indestructible, and also was able to get a nuke with it, just to kind of show you what can be done with the vehicle. I was able to go 2-to-1 overall in the vehicle, with the vast majority of those kills being once I got all of the upgrades. The stock experience of this is so bad compared to a Spaded experience. It's another vehicle which really they should kind of rethink what BR it should be at stock compared to its Spaded, because when it's Spaded, it's great at 9.0. You know, it's I went 109 ground kills, 5 air kills, 52 deaths, so 2-to-1, 57% win rate, over 65 battles. And overall, I would say that was pretty good for the area, especially since, you know, just completed the MBT 70, which was having a bit more of a rough time. Even though I was getting a good win rate in it, you were facing a lot of Leopard 2A4s, a lot of, you know, kind of premiums, terms, stuff like that, which it's nowhere near as good against. So the XM803 gets really good matchmaking right now, and also it does have a pretty horrible stock experience, but I would honestly just stick with it, especially with the lineup that it has. And also right now, in the Battle Pass, there is an event, well, not an event, but there is a challenge right now to play a bunch of American games. So this was a perfect opportunity for me to be able to kind of get this thing done. I had a great experience in it, but it took a while to get to that point. But when I did, it was super fun. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank Schnitzel Stroker, Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Carrion Crow, Nicholas Richardson, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, B. Young, Opium Prime, Masonocrat, Lafouche, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.